What's going on, guys? Chris of Journals Comics here. Doing a video today as a follow-up to my Star Wars The Last Jedi movie review that I did pretty much the day after I saw the movie. Maybe a couple days. Anyways, it's been a couple weeks now. I've been sitting here trying to process, and I will tell you guys, I've been really kind of obsessing over this because I still have this unsettled feeling of the movie, and I have been on YouTube just like binge watching YouTube videos regarding The Last Jedi and people's reactions, from famous people like Kevin Smith to, regular YouTubers like myself. And as much as I'm still in the mind frame of feeling and believing and holding to the fact that this was not a good movie, especially a Star Wars movie, in my opinion, there's so much going on out there to other people's reasonings to why this movie was not good. There's some that believe it was, and they have their reasons, but I'm going to touch on specifically those that, have issues with this film. Now, I'm just going to kind of recap again. I have issues with this film. I left the theater like numb. I was like, really? Did I just watch a Star Wars movie? I didn't know how to feel. And I'm going to recap again. Let's point out some positives. This movie was visually magnificent. It was a visual masterpiece. Okay? Doesn't mean it's a good movie. I laughed at all the silly jokes. Doesn't mean that the movie needed it. I was entertained. And there were some things that I actually can hold on to and see as positive things. But, there were times where I was like, okay, what's going on? What's happening? And I was bored in the movie, which has never happened in a Star Wars movie. And I'm gonna focus on one thing here first to get this out of the way, okay? A lot of people that are pro The Last Jedi are knocking those that have issues with it, stating that, oh, you're just a fanboy that can't be happy with anything they do. It's catch-22, damned if you don't, damned if you do, right? And I do believe that a lot of Star Wars fans go that way. That's not me. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I have no issues with any Star Wars movie before this one. A lot of people hate the prequels. I love the prequels. They have some issues. Yes, I love them. I accept them. I even accepted Force Awakens. I freaking cried in that movie. And I really enjoyed Rogue One. I've had no issues. People that had issues with the prequels complain about, oh, it strayed too far from the originals. So what I think JJ did with The Force Awakens was he brought it back to that original kind of aesthetics. Maybe a little too much. Carbon copying and some things a little too much. But yet, gave the fans what he thought they wanted. And those same people that were hating on the prequels are now, oh, well, it's too much like A New Hope. I get that. That's not me. If I have an issue with the Star Wars film, it's got to be a real issue. So let's get that out of the way, okay? Now, this is my main point of this video right here. This movie, to me, lacked simple, fundamental elements. And that's what made it a bad film. And again, it was great entertainment. The movie was great entertainment. Doesn't mean it's a good film. Okay. It lacks basic, simple fundamentals. Those fundamentals are plot, okay, and character development. Plot, character development. It didn't have either of those. And that goes to simple screenwriting. Now, there's so much else out there online about why this movie is bad. And I'm going to call it right now. Feminism, liberalism, anti-white maleism, a war on men, all this stuff. I'm going to tell you guys right now, there is no room for any of that on my channel. None. Everyone can have their own opinions. Not on my channel. But let me entertain you guys that believe this way and explain why this is completely inaccurate. Okay. And we're going to point fingers at mostly Kathleen Kennedy and Ryan Johnson. We're going to break it down. So first off, a lot of this hate is going to Kathleen Kennedy. Now, even I questioned, like, what is she doing? Is some of this the reason why I dislike this film? Is it her fault? Maybe. But is it her fault because she's trying to sabotage men and she has some feministic agenda? Well, let's look at her past. First thing that cancels out any fact here. Look at her lineup. From E.T. to The Last Airbender to Jurassic Park. Look at her lineup over the last 35 plus years. The majority of those movies are two things: successful, and two, have strong male roles. Okay? Let's look at even The Force Awakens. I want somebody to argue to me how in The Force Awakens, by just having Rey as the lead character, the other men are being attacked or pointless. I thought Poe was a very strong character. Even Finn, with his kind of wackiness. He rose up from being a nothing with no name as a stormtrooper to wielding a freaking lightsaber. So for those of you that want to say, oh, Rey's a Mary Sue who just picks up a lightsaber and doesn't need training. I question that too. I'm like, why isn't she trained? Okay, but to call it some feministic agenda, why was Finn able to pick up a lightsaber and wield it without any training? Okay, so here's my thing. Now, I did a whole bunch of research on Kathleen Kennedy, and she does seem to be what you would call a feminist. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as it doesn't attack any other group. Any ism that attacks another group, or is it at the expense of putting one up while stepping on another, is bad. That's fascism. But any ism that just searches for equality, there's nothing wrong with that. So, when focusing on the only question mark that I have for Kathleen Kennedy is she wore shirts that said the Force is female. Now, keep in mind, to not take it out of context, she wore the shirt at an all-women's school where she was going to speak as a keynote speaker about building up women. And for those that think that women are equal and have the same opportunity, even in America, it is statistically and economically, and I'm a business major, and I've studied, and I have a degree in behavioral sciences and sociology, and I've studied this stuff. As much as in our Constitution and documented in our laws, women have the same rights as men, pretty much, they do not have the same opportunities. You can not believe that or not. Yeah, we don't live in countries where women can get hung and stoned for showing their face or their hair in public. Thank God for that. Thank God we live in this country for that. But still, women do not have the same opportunities in the show. So, if Kathleen Kennedy wants to have an agenda that is supportive of bringing more women into the movie industry, whether in roles or behind the scenes as producers and directors and writers, that doesn't harm anybody. And it shouldn't harm the quality of filmmaking. Now, going back to her shirt, the Force is female, that doesn't really sit well with me because the Force isn't male or female, right? She could have did a shirt that said, females use the Force too, or something like that. So, but to take it completely out of context and say, oh, she wore this one shirt that didn't sit right, so she's a feminazi and all this, it's out of context. There's no real fact or premise or groundwork there to even base any of these opinions on. Like I said, I mean, the Force shouldn't be female or male, and you know, I just think that didn't work. That didn't really work. But I don't think it proves that she's some evil, you know, feminist agenda type of thing. So now let's take, even if she is trying to promote stronger female presence within her movies, okay, by having Rey is a strong female character by having Jyn in Rogue One. That was a great movie. There was great storytelling, a great plot, great build-up, great character development. It didn't matter if it was a female or a male in the lead role. Same with The Last Jedi. Even bringing in Commander Holdo or whatever, and it's like, it doesn't matter that they're female or male. It's that the characters were pointless. So until I get further proof that Kathleen Kennedy has some freaking conspiracy, Illuminati agenda, I'm done. Maybe she doesn't understand the concept and the full breadth of Star Wars for the reasoning of why she picked someone like Rian Johnson to direct a film. That we could question that and hold her accountable to that, but it has nothing to do with gender. And I'm going to explain it in another way. Even for those that have issues with The Force Awakens. But let's focus on The Last Jedi and what was wrong there within the characters, okay? And I'm going to talk about race too, like to say, oh, this is a social justice warrior. I don't even know what that means, social justice warrior. I think that's something that's just created as propaganda. I don't even think the people that they're pointing the finger at saying, you're a SJW, those people, I don't even think they have ever claimed the term social justice warrior. It doesn't exist. So let's look at, we got Rose, an Asian female character. It was not an Asian female character that ruined this movie. It was a new character being introduced with no proper development that really had nothing to do with the three protagonists from the last episode. She did nothing to add to the depth of the plot and to bring us as the viewers involvement in more. We had no emotional connection besides her losing her sister in the beginning. It's just so much new introduced that ruined the plot. She had no point in this movie, no real role in this movie. Now let's go to Finn, who I thought was a great character in The Force Awakens. Just focus on the Last Jedi. It's not a black stormtrooper that turned a hero that ruined this film. It was that character had no further development. We didn't further dive into his character, the plot surrounding his character in this movie is what failed this movie because there was none. It wasn't a new commander that was female with purple hair being introduced that ruined this movie. It was the fact that that commander was introduced, once again, with no character development for us to even want to be involved into this character that ruined this movie. And it is not Rey that is the main female character and lead role in this movie that ruined it. It's that we know nothing more about Rey at the end of this movie than we did at the end of The Force Awakens. It doesn't matter. Somebody else was pointing out in one of their videos, they called them, it doesn't matter if they were gray pieces of putty. Forget that they're black, white, Asian, male, female. It doesn't matter if they're gray pieces of putty. If the gray pieces of putty don't give us depth in character and build to a solid, cohesive plot, they make no point within the film. That's what it boils down to. So I'm trying to tell you guys, it isn't some big conspiracy theory that ruined this movie. It is basic fundamentals that weren't in this movie that ruined this movie. And you can point to Disney because Disney wants to add things to make money. I had no problem with the Porgs. They're freaking cute as hell. Sell a bunch of toys. I don't care. Just like they did with the Ewoks. I don't think the Ewoks ruined Return of the Jedi. The Return of the Jedi still built on the story appropriately and ended it appropriately. Porgs did nothing wrong in this movie. One influence that Disney could have is influencing or introducing new characters that don't really fit in the movie so they can have their own, spin-offs or comic books or cartoon TV shows. That might be a little bit of Kathleen Kennedy or Disney's influence. But with all this being said, I just think it comes back to one thing, and that's Rian Johnson. To me, Rian Johnson is 90% responsible for the issues that are The Last Jedi. Period. So I'm not gonna sit here and entertain any of this freaking alt-right, whatever. I will say though, the one thing that I didn't like, I don't care if it's liberal, I don't care if it's conservative, I don't buy into any of that. I'm me. I think for myself. I didn't like how the Canto Bite whole thing in this movie was horrible and shouldn't have been there. And I don't like the injection of, oh, slavery. And not to say that it shouldn't be there, because remember, Anakin was a slave. But there wasn't an agenda within the film to, oh, slavery's bad, let's end it. We all know slavery's bad, regardless of if you believe it's a liberal agenda or a conservative agenda. I do believe it. I don't think those things should be forced within the Star Wars universe. Now, you could say that the prequels were very political. I don't necessarily think they were political. They were it was all about economics, which the politics involved were needed to build to why we had a republic and an empire break apart and an empire take control. But see, it was the divisiveness that played both sides. So the evil wasn't liberal or conservative. The evil was this fascist hierarchy that rose to power, playing both sides. You could say liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, to transcend it into the real world, and if that was to happen. So it's not like the film or the context of the film played one side of political propaganda that would alienate some fans. It was a very universal agenda that any fan can relate to. So I didn't really like that in the Canto Bites scene, but outside of that, it's not politics, it's not feminism, it's not race or forced equality and forced diversity and all this stuff that's doing any ruining here. All of that, I welcome all of that, because that's the world we live in. We live in a diverse world where females should have just as much power as men, and it doesn't matter if you tell a good story. If you can tell a good story, plain, simple, period. It's sad that I have to sit here and have objections to this movie and be in the same box as people that are objecting to it are freaking right-wing, neo, whatever you want to call them. And if I'm speaking to you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You have no... I pray for you. You do what you do. There's no room for that on my YouTube, and there's no room for that in the Star Wars universe. There's not. There's no room for that in the Star Wars universe. And until something like that becomes concrete, because like I said, if somebody takes a liberal or leftist agenda or a conservative right-wing agenda and infiltrates something like Star Wars with that, that's horrible. And I will be against it. There's no proof that any of that is in the pudding right now. None. None at all. Simple. Simple, simple, simple. Bad writing and directing ruined this movie. Period. Now, I could go on about the positives some positives that were within this movie. I just want to end though on the one thing like this. For those that are pro The Last Jedi, that really enjoyed this movie, I'm not knocking you. Like I said, I was entertained too for the most part. But and you say that Rian Johnson, he took it into a whole new direction and surprised us at every turn. Surprises don't make a good movie. And I think what Rian Johnson did was shock value. This movie was we eliminated a solid, cohesive plot and character development for shock value and funny, tickling humor. Into the humor, where I think they're doing too much, because this isn't a Marvel film where it works. Imagine in Empire Strikes Back, Luke is being brought up to, Vader. He surrenders himself and is brought to Vader, and they're dueling it out. And Vader chops his hand off, and Luke's hanging from the pole. And, you know, they start talking about his father, and Vader tells him, you know, I'm your father. Imagine in that moment some quirky, silly thing happened. Like, Luke paused and was like, wait a minute. And did some like offbeat joke, or like when Luke's hand flies off, it like flings up and like hits Vader on the head or something for some quirky moment. Oh, back to seriousness. How many of you guys would have laughed at that, said, oh yeah, that's exactly what should have happened in this moment? I doubt any real Star Wars fan would accept that, especially in hindsight, looking back now and trying to inject that there and telling yourself, seeing it for yourself, saying, would this have worked? That's the problem I have with the humor in this movie. It was fine in some places to some degree, but the buildup of Rey handing Luke the lightsaber, him tossing it over his shoulder. I'm done, guys. I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed and stay hopeful for this franchise. I think a lot of people have some work to do. I hope that you guys can at least listen to my perspective. I'm not here to change anybody's minds, but let's be humble. Let's be respectful of each other. It's freaking 2018, and let's not allow our disliking of a film to bring out so much prejudice when there's no factual basis there. Simple fundamentals ruin this film. With that being said, guys, I'm out. Leave some comments. I can definitely respectfully debate with people, even if you have a different opinion than me. But just if you do have a different opinion than me and you're commenting, just be respectful. I will respect you. I will. You know, like I said, there's no place for any disrespect or bullying or anything like that. And let's try to keep this out of Star Wars, whether we like the avenue that Star Wars is going or not. Let's stay positive the best that we can. All right, guys. Happy New Year. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't subscribed and you like what you saw, please do so. And until next time.